Please let me stand on the protocol already established.
Goes back to the fundamental basics of our society, which is the respect of the rule of law. We continue to see it as it continues to impact on every sector. What Mala Adoke has shown here is where the rule of law, he's been a victim of that. And I'm sure not only him, even many of us, me standing here, I'm also one. And I hope that when my book comes out, Sheyi Makinde and I will be able to present that. But we talk about it in light tone. But we thank God that he is here. It could have been a different story. And as he said, there's still scars. You go through it, you get vindicated in court. But there's some scars that live with you. I remember it was a few months ago where I was somewhere and a young person just Googled and listed all the accusations. But where you've been vindicated is so small compared to all the negative stories. And it lives with you many years after. And the sad part about it is that you bargained for this. But you know, we all have young children who didn't bargain for this. They have to carry this burden with them. So I think as a society, honestly, we need to begin to review, these kind of things when we're in power and people are in position of authority. Secondly, is the oil and gas sector. It's OPL245 today. It's such an important sector in the economy that, as Imakide said, we need to make it more transparent, the processes and which it goes about. Let me salute you for your courage, and I hope that a lot of people would read the book. I'm going to read the book so I can learn what not to say and what to say when I write my book. Thank you so much.
I'm probably, the only person in this hall who has read this book maybe twice. So I consider myself privileged indeed to have them be asked to come and do this review. Copies are on sale, so if you disagree with me, just buy your own copy. Okay, here we go. OPL245 is probably the most well-known oil block to be awarded by the Nigerian government, more for the legal disputes and international arbitrations with regard to its acquisition and ownership involving the federal government of Nigeria, Shell and Malabu Oil, as well as a large cast of actors across courts in Nigeria, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Italy. Whereas OPL245, a versatile deep-water offshore asset of the Niger Delta, was one of other similar licenses awarded to encourage indigenous participation in Nigeria's oil and gas sector. It is caught in a complex web of scandals, allegations of corruption, bribery, and so much melodrama in and out of the courtrooms. In an earlier book titled Burden of Service, Mohammed Bello Adoke, SAN, had written, among other things, on this controversial oil prospecting license, or what is also known as Malabu Gate. In the present book, a sequel to his first book, he focuses on the OPL245 in an extensive and comprehensive account of the allegations about his role, the burden that he has had to endure in terms of what he calls clinical persecution, or the lies and more lies, I'm quoting him, that were told against him and his eventual vindication. Adoke'S OPL245 is, by his own admission, therapeutic, a book that needed to be written to set the record straight for posterity and to clear his name through a documentation of facts and circumstances. Adoke was Nigeria's Attorney General and Minister of Justice, April 2010 to June 2015. At the time, the OPL245 saga began in 2003. He was not yet in government, nor was he either when the block was revoked by the Obasanjo government on July 2nd, 2001, or when a settlement agreement was signed in 2006. But when he was appointed Attorney General and Minister of Justice in 2010, OPL245 became one of the matters he inherited as Attorney General. It was during this period that the Jonathan administration confirmed the award of OPL245 to Malabo. This author is very clear in stating that the politicization of OPL245 was caused by former President Olusegun Obasanjo. And I quote, who woke up one morning and set OPL245 on fire. He revoked the block without giving any reasons, now resulting in a series of litigations involving the NNPC, Malabo, and Shell, which stalled the development of the asset. One of Adoke'S first assignments as Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice was to help unpack the logjam, and he had advised that the 2006 settlement agreement was binding on the federal government of Nigeria. In the resolution agreement that was arrived at in April 2011, Shell and Nigeria Ajib Exploration Limited will pay $1.3 billion into an escrow account with JP Morgan in London, while Malabo will receive $1.09 billion as compensation as full and final settlement. As the chief law officer of the Federation, Adoke was convinced that he had given the government proper advice in the circumstances. This book is about the twists and turns that he will have to deal with later. The exact nature of the burden of service that he has spoken about is laid bare in this book. On May 29, 2015, after the Jonathan administration had left office and the Muhammadu Buhari administration had been sworn in, Adoke said he received messages from those in the know that he was going to be hounded by the new government. He was in fact advised to leave town. He heeded the advice, but more specifically to proceed for further studies at the University of Leiden in the Netherlands. His travails soon began. He was accused of taking a bribe of 300 million naira, $2.2 million at the time, from the OPL245 agreement, or another 801 million, then cases of money laundering and abuse of office. Adoke insists on his innocence. Nonetheless, he remained in exile from May 29, 2015 to December 19, 2019. In between, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission filed cases against him in court. His name was mentioned in legal disputes in Italy, the US, and the UK. His apartment was raided in the Netherlands. His houses were searched in Nigeria. A warrant of arrest was issued against him internationally, leading to his arrest and detention for 35 days by Interpol in Dubai, UAE. And upon his return to Nigeria, he spent another 55 days in EFCC detention. He was even interrogated over the P&ID matter, and it was not until April 2024 that he was fully cleared of all allegations of wrongdoing in Nigerian courts, resulting in his vindication. Thus, he has had to suffer for about 8 years with threats to his life and well-being. As he puts it, now I quote him, he says, when President Muhammadu Buhari came to power in 2015, he chose to come after me. Agreed that he misruled Nigeria for 8 years, but he at least got distinction in one thing, destroying my name. He turned me to the poster boy of a scandal that never was. I was arrested and detained in the UAE for 35 days. I was arrested and detained for another 55 days in Nigeria by the EFCC. Anywhere my name is mentioned today, it is Malabo and OPL245 that usually come to mind. Thanks to Buhari, who harbored a collection of bitter feelings against me for reasons best known to him, end of quote. In this book, Adoke fights back, relying on his vindication at every turn by the courts. The book is divided into 5 parts and 26 chapters. It's a cold-blooded, no-holds-barred response to everyone whom he considers as having played an unkind role in the course of his travails. This may well end up as a very controversial book, as the affected persons and institutions may seek to write their own stories, for it should not be assumed that everyone in this cast of heroes and villains will simply read the book and accept guilt. A few examples may perhaps convey an impression of this book's flavor. In chapter 5, Adoke says, former President Olusegun Obasanjo is clever by half. I'm quoting him, I'm not the one saying so. and that he owes Nigerians an apology for blatantly lying, another quote. He says, and I quote again, Obasanjo failed the ultimate leadership test in the matter of OPL245. He adds that, and I quote, it was disingenuous of Obasanjo to have tried to distort historical facts. On President Buhari, he observes that he, Buhari, was driven by vengeance. Vengeance for the Abacha family. He believed I was unfair to the Abachas in the OPL245 deal. Having established what he calls intrigue and vendetta in the first part of the book, part 2, titled A Den of the Famous, is a systematic scoring of those he considers his traducers, namely President Muhammadu Buhari, a friend and defender of the Abacha family, Professor John Padden, author, he says, of the shabby biography of Muhammadu Buhari, Mohammed Sani or Mohammed Abacha, who claims he owns 50% of Malabu, which he did not pay for, and yet wanted a cut from the Malabu windfall. Others, who seem to have been part of the grand conspiracy against Adoke, include Professor Yemi Osinbajo and his lawyer friend, Olabode Johnson, whose firm, and I quote, whose firm and partners were targeting a commission of between 5 and 35%. Mr. Abubakar Malami, Adoke'S successor as AGF, UK-based Global Witness, an Italian prosecutor called Fabio Do Pasquale, Header Resource Center, a Nigerian NGO working with Global Witness, Mr. Rislanuddin Mohammed, who lied, Sahara Reporter, which Adoke calls an anything goes website, and Premium Times newspaper, all involved in character assassination and the mudslinging agenda. Chapter 8, titled The Ruthless Enforcer, is a detailed review of the role of the EFCC under Mr. Ibrahim Magu in the author's travails, what he calls the Magu pandemic. One EFCC prosecutor, Mr. Balasanga, is even dismissed as one low-life, miserable person. Adoke does not pull his punches. Large portions of this book must have been written in a fit of anger. Professor Yemi Osinbajo is labeled the conflicted Mr. Clean, that's another quote, who likes to be seen as the epitome of transparency, honesty, and accountability. Abubakar Malami is called a betrayer and a viper. The whole of chapter 10 is devoted to the antics of Malami. Olanrewaju Suraju, Header Resource Center, and Global Witness got their own thrashing in chapter 12, titled The Headless Mob. Fabio Do Pasquale is the Italian jobber whose eventual demotion by Italy's Superior Council of the Judiciary Adoke celebrates, just as he also gloat over Mr. Godwin Emefiele's travails later in the book. Death finally caught up with the hunter, Adoke writes sarcastically. Part 3 is titled Harassed and Embarrassed, 5 chapters in which the reader is taken through the author's detention in Dubai for 35 days from 12th November 2019 till 19 December 2019, when he decided of his own volition to return to Nigeria only to be detained for another 55 days in EFCC custody. Part 4, Trials and Triumphs, is a detailed report of the various cases related to OPL245 in the United States, Italy, the UK, and the pronouncements by the courts in Nigeria. Lawyers, students of case law, prosecutors, and the general reader will find a lot that is instructive in this part of the book. The reporting is robust, the documentation is extensive and illuminating about how the path to justice may be taught to us. Justice for the accused, justice for the jury, and justice for society. It is difficult to see, however, how justice has been done to society in the case of OPL245. Beyond the arrested development of the asset, it is curious, as this author asserts, that OPL245 litigation was a very lucrative oil block, as lucrative as OPL245 itself for lawyers and their allies in the Buhari administration. That is a monumental waste of resources. The book is brought to a close with reflections and recollections. Chapter 26 opens with a telling statement: I was discharged and acquitted, but the scars remain. And this is perhaps understandable given the picture of man's wickedness to man that Adoke paints, to rise to an extreme position of being the chief law officer of the Federation, only to be humiliated by, I quote again, a desperate, vicious, and ruthless government, Adoke'S description of Buhari's government. There are 4 subtexts running through the entire book. The first is how the institutions of state, such as the EFCC and the judiciary, can be used to pursue unmitigated acts of persecution. The second is the fickleness of the human mind and this deep-seated hatred that some nurse in their minds. The third subtext is the use and abuse of the media. And the fourth is how the treatment that people like Adoke, who serve in government, receive, discourages many other public-minded, public-spirited persons from serving their country. Over 12 years of litigation upon litigation over OPL245 further raises questions about the quality of leadership in Nigeria. And so Adoke asks, who truly shall change Nigeria between Adoke and Buhari? Readers of this book may well find answers within its pages. The book is dedicated to all who stood by me when I was going through the darkest era of my life. My vindication is a victory for those who gave me a benefit of the doubt. This will include Ibrahim Lamode, chairman of the EFCC, who was relieved of his position a day after he insisted that Adoke was innocent. President Jonathan, whom Adoke describes as a super respecter of the law. Late Malam Abba Kyari, Chief of Staff to Buhari, Ambassador Baba Kamara, the legal team led by Chief Akanu Agabi, SAN, as well as true friends and relatives. The book ends on a note of thanksgiving, as the author chooses to pray. I quote, "The Almighty, to whom all glory belongs, will reward every single person who stood by me." End of quote. The boy from Nagazi, Mohammed Bello Adoke, SAN, CFR, lawyer, now author and public intellectual, should find some healing for his scars if his story, as told here, is warmly received by those to whom it may concern. The book has strong merit. Thank you.
Not the one who fights with the furious elephant. I want to commend you for the courage to complete all those who have offended you in the course of your public duty. And Martin Luther King said, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands at moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. In the last 4 years of the Jonathan administration, I was the most demonized person. I was the public enemy number one. And there are two gentlemen seated here. Certain divisions are taken in a little way at this cycle. The President, the Vice President, the Senate President, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. In one of such conflicts, former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan DCFR, with whom we have shared the sword and have now recalibrated our relationship, was mooting the idea of removing this Borno governor, and Aminu Waziri Tambwa, the then Speaker of the House of Representatives, had the courage to tell the President that, Your Excellency, you don't have the power to remove an elected councillor. The President was still not convinced. He moved the idea that the Federal Executive Council. I admire Mr. Mohammed Bello Adoke'S, fundamentally for his courage and for his convictions and for his capacity to stand for what he believes in. He told the then President that, Mr. President, you do not have the power to remove a sitting governor, not even a council. The so-called opinion of another SAN in the cabinet, Kabiru Turaki, who said, I'm concurring with the opinion of my senior colleague. That was how the matter was laid to rest, but that was how my relationship with Mr. Bello Adoke'S and Aminu Waziri Tambwa became eternally sealed. The former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and Chairman of the occasion, His Excellency Goodluck Ebele Jonathan DCFR, ably represented by the former President of the Senate, Senator Anyim Pius Anyim, GCON. Former Senate President who is conspicuously absent, he has left in them. My brother, the amiable governor of Oyo State, Engineer Sheyi Makinde, and the Deputy Governor of Kogi State, Comrade Joel Talibu. You have to be amiable because they are bloody Deputy Governor. So. Members of the National Assembly present here, most especially Senator Aliu Ahmed Wadada, Chairman Senate Committee on Public Accounts, and Senator Kakasha Lawan, who succeeded me as the Senator for Borno Central. The Attorney General of the Federation, ably represented by the Solicitor General and Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Mrs. Beatrice J.B. Akbar. I prefer to call it the actress. This is how we know that it's called the actress J.B. Akbar. The Ambassador of Italy to Nigeria, His Excellency Stefano De Leo. The game changer, is he still around? No, the game changer has left. But the infant terrible of the Nigerian governance plot. Hate him, love him, but you can't ignore him. Nasiru Ahmed Abati, former governor of Kaduna State, and the tire-speaking leader of the Concordia movement, Dr. Rabiu Musa Konkoso. When are you celebrating your 70th birthday? Because your friend that celebrated is on. My father, Justice C.D. Bagin, the Emir of Latvia. My brother, J.F.K. John Kayode Kayode, the former governor of Ekiti State. My friend, my brother, the governor of Kwara State, former governor of Kwara State, Abdul Fattah Ahmed. Special advisor to the president on policy coordination, we call her the head girl, Hadiza Bala Osman. Special advisor to the president on general duties, office of the vice president, Dr. Ali Modibo Umar. The author of the book, former attorney general of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mohammed Bello Adoke'S, CFR, SAN, former Minister of Information, Alhaji Lari Mohammed, heads of government agencies and parastatals, J.D. Akbar. I told you I a sheikh and more than sheikh when I saw you with a turban when I came in. Alhaji Hassan Tukure, polyglot in his own right. Ndudi, Elumelu, Mahesh, so many, which reflect the eclectic crowd of friends that Mohammed Bello Adoke maintains. We have PDP, we have new PDP, we have the coalition earlier represented by my elder brother, Malanatu. We have the NNPP, APP, earlier represented by, but this is a reflection, this is a kaleidoscope of colors. What binds us together surpasses whatever that divides us. Former IGP and the Adoke is a PDP man. So also is so. Well, okay, let me just package it to PDP. We are all one. I have the best of relationship with him, in spite of our minor political differences. And of course, Senator Dagash, I believe you are you in ADC or APC or PDP. Only God knows where you belong to. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria has endured the silence who led public service with their stories still in the vaults of memory. Our public service is a territory governed by silence. There is silence to preserve relationships. There is silence to protect secrets too delicate to disclose. And there is silence for memories we would rather forget. As a generation of leaders, we must summon the courage to document our journeys. Our host today, my friend, my brother, Mohammed Bello Adoke, is a stranger to neither storytelling nor public scrutiny. He is, first and foremost, a lawyer, and a very prominent erudite lawyer for that matter. His new book, OPL245, The Inside Story of the 1.3 billion oil drop, is a recollection of events that still steer debate. These debates unfold in boardrooms and newsrooms. They echo through political cycles and around dinner tables. In his own words, he was bloodied, but unbowed. This is a sentiment familiar to anyone who has held the corridors of power in this country. So I must say this without equivocation. Each of us who has had the privilege of serving this country all the people an account of our stewardship. Our stories are not ours alone. They belong to the nation. They belong to history. We must never forget that public service is, in the end, a lively, underdog in the court of public opinion. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt that those named in this book will tell their own side of the story. That indeed is how history finds its balance. Every witness must speak. Every accused person must speak. Every participant must speak. And as they do, we are reminded of the sobering truth. Life itself is a litigation with no end. There is no final adjournment in the pursuit of justice. There is no permanent decide in the reckoning of history. We are always being summoned, not by a judge, but by conscience and by posterity. This book, therefore, is an access card to the next phase of hearings in the court of public opinion. The pages of this book will inspire debates. They will provoke rebuttals. They will ignite fresh investigations. These conversations will take place in drawing rooms, in lecture halls, and in the columns of tomorrow's newspapers. I believe that Dr. Reuben Abati will feature these books in his But this is the nature of storytelling. It expands the moment it is shared with the public. Those who have walked this path carry scars that do not always show. They bear burdens that do not always make it into official reports. That is why we must commend every attempt to document our stories. Not because they are perfect, but because they are necessary. Not because they end the conversation, but because they begin it. The courts may close. The headlines may fade. The official records may be revised, but the conscience of a nation never adjourns. In that eternal courtroom, we are all on trial. Not only for what we did, but for what we dare to remember, for what we dare to reveal, and for what we dare to pass on. As we live here today, we must realize something fundamental. This culture of accounting for our place in history shall remain our solemn path until we draw our final breath. It is a duty that binds us to one another and to the generations yet unborn. We must continue to honor this calling until we arrive at that ultimate destination where our stories are no longer ours to tell, where our memories yield to eternity, and where judgment is neither appealed nor revised, but sealed forever. Mr. Adoke, thank you for telling your own side of the story. May our nation continue to prosper. May we continue to be united in the cause of this our great nation. Thank you, and may God bless us.
Please permit me to acknowledge the governor of my state, Governor Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, because he was the governor of Kano State when I was practicing law in Kano, and the deputy governor of Kogi State, who is there present. And my big brother, former governor of Kaduna State, His Excellency Nasir El-Rufai, who in my years of exile, sir, was very supportive, himself and Chief Rotimi Amechi, the former governor of Rivers State. I'm delighted by the honor done me by your esteemed presence at the public presentation of my book titled OPL245, Inside Story of the 1.3 billion Nigerian oil block. I want to specifically thank the chairman of the occasion, President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, GCFR, my boss, whose disposition and leadership qualities enabled me to independently discharge the functions of my office without let or hindrance. I'm indebted I'm indebted to the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON, an amiable leader and a gentleman par excellence, for taking time out of his busy schedule to honor me with his esteemed presence. I'm particularly grateful for his courage, encouragement, and soothing words, which are healing balm to the physical and psychological trauma caused by my traducer and the Nigerian state. Permit me, Your Excellency, to inform this audience that after the verdicts by the various courts were over, I opted to go back into exile. In fact, I left. It was to the credit of His Excellency, the Vice President, who called me one day and said, "Come back to Nigeria. You have to put a closure to this saga." I thank you, Mr. Vice President. I'm also very grateful to the Chief Presenter, His Excellency Governor Seyi Makinde, for honoring me by presenting this book to the public. Governor Makinde has repeatedly demonstrated his friendship through his numerous acts of kindness and forbearance. I can attest that through hard work and service to his people, he has risen to the enviable position of a respected political leader and statesman in the Nigerian polity. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my close associates and friends have sought to know my motivation for writing this book, which many have either termed controversial or too revealing by Nigerian standard. While not attempting to review the book, it is important to assure you all that I did not set out to denigrate anyone, but to set the record straight and provide valuable insights into a transaction that was not only carried out in furtherance of the national interest, but also to safeguard Nigeria's economic interests as it relates to the exploitation of our hydrocarbon resources. The Chinese proverb to the effect that the faintest ink is better than the strongest memory aptly reinforced the reliability of written records over human memory. I am therefore not unmindful of the fact that the event would outlive us. Documenting such events as have been done in this book is a more dependable way of preserving such information and effectively shielding it from distortion deliberately or unwittingly. Although I was not a party to the 2006 settlement agreement which preceded my appointment as Attorney General of the Federation of Nigeria and Minister of Justice, my traducers, state and non-state actors alike, ensured that I suffered immense public odium, loss of reputation, earnings, and family life for the role I played in ensuring the implementation of an agreement in 2011, notwithstanding that I was only carrying out the lawful directives of the President in the exercise of his executive powers under the Constitution. The book has revealed the damaging role of anti-corruption campaigners, local and international, especially when their motives are less than altruistic, laced with unethical conduct and desire to achieve nothing more than to destroy hard-earned reputations. Their use of unethical and illegal tactics, as was done in my case, to satisfy narrow interests and predetermined outcomes must be deprecated. It was during my travail that I learned that public officers with a viable position in government could be persuaded in the national interest to lie on oath to ensure victory in the spurious suit instituted on behalf of the government. I've always believed the public prosecution should be conducted ethically and only when the facts support the charges. The OPL245 prosecution revealed disturbing incidents of connivance, conspiracy to pervert the course of justice, and downright suppression of exculpating evidence to secure a conviction at all costs. The amount of public funds expended on this malicious prosecution and ill-motivated civil suits is astounding. Nigerian taxpayers should not be made to carry such a needless burden. There must be consequences for ill-conceived and malicious prosecutions conducted at public expense. The Milan prosecutor in Italy were found guilty of suppressing exculpatory evidence. The judicial system punished their unethical conduct with 8 months imprisonment. On the contrary, in Nigeria, the investigators and prosecutors of the EFCC, in the bid to satisfy their paymasters, equally disregarded subsisting court orders, suppressed evidence, and intimidated witnesses to lie on oath in a desperate effort to try to secure a conviction. Regrettably, nothing has happened to them. We must restore the good old tradition and standards of prosecution based on evidence. No matter the pressure that is brought to bear on them, prosecutors must never be persecutors. In all of this, my belief in the Nigerian project remains unshakable. Public office is a public trust for which we remain accountable, not only to our maker, but also to the people. It is said that when you fall into hard times, that is when you know your true friends. I was lucky to have friends that I could lean on, even in those difficult years in exile. While for want of time, I cannot begin to call all of them by name, I must acknowledge His Excellency Ahmed Usman Ododo, Governor of Kogi State, for his brotherly love and support. I must also acknowledge the role played by His Excellency Alhaji Ahmed Adamu Mazu in my years in exile. I thank him very much for his friendship as well. Permit me, Your Excellency, to recognize His Excellency Rotimi Chubeke Amechi for his friendship and support, particularly his various visits to me while I was in Ghana. The same equally goes for my friend, His Excellency SN1 Nation Wike, CON, the current Minister of FCT, who stood by me when I came back from exile and gave me all the necessary support. I remain grateful. I also acknowledge the friendship and support of His Excellency Governor Nasiru El-Rufai, former Governor of Kaduna State, Chief Ben Peters, Chairman IETEL Group, Prince Godi Jadi Abba, who stood for over 3 hours waiting to see me when I was detained by the EFCC, and he was refused access to me, yet he was a minister in the government of the Buhari government at that time. My brother, my friend of 45 years, Dr. Didi Dodo, OFR, SAN, a culprit who persuaded me into writing this book, so if there is any backlash, we have to share it together. My brother, Professor Fibian Ajogu, who was always with me in Ghana as well, giving me all the necessary moral support and giving me literatures, books to read to occupy my time. And of course, my brother, Mahesh Vaswani, who ensured that throughout my stay in Ghana and Dubai, I was comfortable. I remain grateful. Let me also thank Mr. Roland Ewubare, the current COO of, and particularly my wife, Saditu, who is unavoidably absent today because she lost an uncle of hers. My children and siblings, particularly Husna Bello, and my brother, Engineer Bashir Bello, and all special assistants and staff who stood by me throughout my ordeal. Permit me to say, Your Excellency, that I've forgiven all those who have hands in my ordeal. With the public presentation of this book, sir, I say boldly and clearly that I admire the courage of Ibrahim Mustapha Magum in coming forward to make up with me, to apologize to me, and to empathize with me for the role each and every one of them played in my travail. I have forgiven him. I see him as a friend, and I hope he will take steps to also make up with others that may have been victims of his activities in office. May God bless you all. Thank you very much. I'm grateful.